Some of my kids' favorite kid podcasts are the ones where they get to hear kid voices in the episodes, which is one of the reasons I was super excited to show them this week's podcast, Culture Kids. I'm Andy Smiley, the Friendly Podcast Guide. I'm a mom who has used podcasts to fight the boredom and loneliness of motherhood, and now I want to help you find a podcast that can do the same thing for you. It can be overwhelming to try and find a podcast you'll enjoy in the thousands of shows that are out there. That's where I come in. My episodes are short and they answer all of the questions you'll have about the podcast, so you'll know if it's a good fit for you or not. I'm here to help you find a podcast you'll love without wasting your time. Now, let's talk podcasts. Kristen and Asher are the mom and son duo behind Culture Kids, and this is how they describe their show. Are you ready for an exciting adventure around the world? Come join Kristen and Asher as we explore the world's most fascinating landmarks, cuisines, cultural practices, and so much more. It's time to expand our imagination and become globe-trotting explorers in the comfort of our own homes. The length of each episode is about 15 minutes. Before we learn more about the Culture Kids podcast, we're going to take a quick break to talk about how I am celebrating the 100th episode of the Friendly Podcast Guide. This week, we're celebrating 100 episodes. This Thursday's episode will actually be the 100th episode. And I'm giving away a $25 Amazon gift card to celebrate. It's easy to enter. All you have to do is hop on Instagram and talk about why you love podcasts and how you use the Friendly Podcast Guide in your life. Then tag the Friendly Podcast Guide so that I can know that you did it. If you have a private account, then just DM me a screenshot of your story or post so that I can make sure you're in the drawing to win the gift card. I can't wait to hear about all of the reasons you all love podcasts and how you use FPG in your life. I'll be announcing the winner next week on June 29th, so make sure to talk about the show before the 29th. Now we get to hear from Kristen as she talks about her heritage being a big reason she decided to start this show with her son. Kristen, thank you so much for being on the Friendly Podcast Guide today. Before we dive into your fabulous kid podcast, can you introduce yourself to my listeners a little bit?
Sure. My name is Kristen. We co-produce the podcast with my son, Asher, who's turning 6 this summer. And we live in Los Angeles, and we're Korean American.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I just read a book. Oh, no, I'm not going to remember what it's called, but it was based in Seoul, and I am dying to go to South Korea now. Like, seriously, I am so excited. It's on my list. I don't know when I'm going to get there, but I'm hoping it's in the next couple of years because, it just sounded absolutely amazing.
Fun, lively city, so much to do.
So let's dive into why you started your podcast with your son.
Sure. Thank you so much for asking. My family and I, when I was little, we immigrated from South Korea. So just growing up as a Korean American immigrant, I always felt very shy and embarrassed about sharing my cultural traditions, especially when it came to things like food or even speaking the language. Honest to say and sad to say, I did face some minor bullying and, kids kind of making fun of it. And over time, just instead of sort of rising up to the challenge to find confidence and pride in my differences, and instead, most immigrants we probably grew up with, we try to hide that part of our identity. Mm. And now that I look back and now that I have my own 2 children, I want to help every child, no matter where they're from, even if they don't identify themselves with a certain culture, to feel like they all have something unique and different about them. And that's what makes the world so interesting. And so we created this podcast with the mission to just foster curiosity and passion for culture, geography, and just have a sense of adventure, right? To explore the world. And there's just so many studies out there now saying that when children are exposed to different cultures and different language and just different things and traditions, that it helps them to become empathetic leaders and creators and innovators. And in every episode, we always try to stress the idea that every person and every family is different, and that's okay.
That is so fun. I I love to travel. I guess that might be obvious because I want to go to Seoul and I live in Utah. They are not close. And I love learning. And the main reason I love to travel is I love to learn about people and cultures and people that do things differently. And maybe they do it better than I do it right now. And I need to learn how I don't know, like they do dinner or mealtime or how they handle like outdoor space. I don't know. And I feel like I learn something every time I go on a trip. And so I love to have kid podcasts like this that get my kids excited about all the places that I want to go. Cause then you do the work for me. Like you make it exciting. You sell it and then I can just take them. Like it's glorious. I love it.
Yeah. And we're also very mindful about, we're not like, the idea isn't to push the idea of traveling across the world, all the time, because that's not possible for most families out there, right?
Totally.
So, we always emphasize the idea, use your great big imagination. We can find adventure at home and, we can find, adventure through, friends that speak different languages and or eat different foods. So, yeah, that's another important mission that we try to keep in mind through each episode.
Definitely. That's awesome. Well, yeah, because especially kids, they don't really get to control where they go, right? So much. So a podcast that they can go wherever they want to in their mind is lovely. So you talked about like adventure and empathy. Is there anything else specific that you want kids to get out of your podcast?
Yeah. And I think most importantly is curiosity, right? We want children to kind of, every episode is less than 15 minutes or about 15 minutes. So we try to kind of, plant a seed of curiosity into whatever topic we talk about. And we cover a range of topics such as, like Lunar New Year for South Korea, or we've done episodes on like Texas barbecue. And, I do plan to kind of focus a bit more on like culture of the United States of America, like how every 50 states has their own thing, has their own food and music even, right? And I just want children to feel like that there's a big world out there and that it's okay to be different, like no matter what that difference is. It doesn't even have to be culture focused, right? Like every family celebrates holidays differently. And I want them to be able to come to school and be excited to discuss it and to learn about their peers, about how they do things in their family. And I really think that would solve so many problems that we have in the world, right? If instead of, instead of, sharing our differences kind of like in a divisive way, if we do it in a way where, we're excited to share it and others are curious and understanding of our differences, like what would that world look like for our children? So.
Definitely. And also I feel like help kids in general be curious in a like an uplifting way almost, instead of being like, ooh, what's that? Be like, that sounds so cool. How do I learn more about that or whatever? So I love that. I love the idea of helping kids to learn that differences are cool and that learning about differences is fun. Like it's not like, it's not weird or bad to be curious about other people's cultures.
Yeah. And every time, and we also make sure that, Asher expresses his thoughts on it. Like, it's okay if you don't like it. We always say like, try a new food once. If you don't like it, that's okay. It's different. How you celebrate something is different and that's okay.
So I know that your vibe is super fun and unique because you have your almost 6-year-old son on there with you. But how would you describe the vibe of your show?
The vibe of the show, aside from being fun and I hope hopefully entertaining, the word that I always try to focus is safe and warm, right? Like a nurturing. I always try to keep that in mind when we pick our music and most importantly, language, because children will not learn and open their mind and their heart if they feel like they're not in a safe space or if they do not feel nurtured and supported. So, even things like tone of voice and, as I mentioned, language, that's huge. The wording that we use and the music, I want to create a vibe for children where they just feel really nurtured and that whatever you want to bring to the table, like your differences, like that you all are welcome here.
That sounds absolutely lovely. And thank you. Thank you for creating that vibe, that culture around your podcast. I love being able to know when my kids turn on your podcast that they will feel, like welcomed and not like put aside for their curiosity. So thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. We also, one of the things that I work with Asher and, my daughter as well is that, everyone's going to be different. Every person's going to say something that you might not know what they're talking about or agree with, right? But that's okay, right? So when we have guests or we're talking about a certain viewpoint, Asher will say like, oh, that's not how we do it in our family. Like we do this. And it's like, okay, like, thank you for sharing that. So yeah, it's just very important to us that these conversations are done in a warm, welcoming, safe space. So
definitely. Okay, so this is one of my favorite questions. What is your favorite episode? But before you answer that, to give you like a second to think about it, can you tell me where can people find you and Asher, the podcast, social media, all of that jazz?
Yeah, thank you. So Culture Kids Podcast can be found on our website. It's culturekidspodcast.com or really anywhere you can get your podcasts. We're listed in pretty much every directory available. Our Instagram pages at Culture Kids Podcast. We're going to soon start launching some social media marketing efforts. You'll see, behind the scenes footage and fun like infographics with
sure
and things like that. So yeah, that's where you can find us.
Nice. Well, I look forward to seeing that. I love it. I love to see kid podcasts on social media because then it's just an easier way to find parents, right? And have parents find you. So yay, good for you. That's a big step and that's awesome. Okay, so now I want to hear what is your favorite episode or a couple of episodes because I do know it's hard to choose just one.
Yeah, I think, very hard question. But I would say we did a 2-part episode about different snacks around the world.
Ooh,
so,
fun.
Yeah, a bunch of our friends and colleagues left voicemail about how they ate their childhood snacks, right? And some were traditional, cultural, and some weren't. It was cool, like, seeing how different people eat something simple like grilled cheese. And one of my friends left a voicemail about New York City, like how to order a, bacon, egg, and cheese on a roll in a New York City bodega, because that is New York City culture.
Totally.
And yeah, I wanted to make it feel like, that was the underlying, messages we talked about is that, everybody has something different and unique to share. So yeah, that was a very fun episode to do. So we had so much content that we made it into 2 separate episodes.
Oh, that is so fun. And I love a 2-parter. I feel like whenever there's a 2-parter, that means that it's like really fun and you don't want it to end, right? Like those are my favorite. So that's awesome. I will make sure to link that in the show notes so that all of my listeners can go and check that episode out because I definitely will. So I'm sure that they all will want to too.
Oh, thank you.
So what age range for kids do you like aim for your podcast?
Yeah. So, when we, write out things for the podcast, I always say like 4 to 9 or 4 to 10.
Okay.
I've been told that it's really for all ages. We just got reviewed by Common Sense Media, and it was like it's for all ages. And I have a 3-year-old too, so I want to make sure that it's comfortable and warm and inviting for her, someone so young. That we don't add any content that is like too out there. But sometimes when I'm, it's all prescripted, but a lot of the lines I'm like, well, this is definitely the only adults are going to understand, and that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Asher we'll have discussions about it. But yeah, I would say really it's all ages, right? Because there's a lot of information there. We've done an episode on truffles.
No, that's awesome.
Right? Talked about truffles from Italy and, various parts of Europe. And I think everybody has something that they can learn. So, yeah.
Definitely.
say
And
all
I
ages.
love a kid podcast that's also engaging for adults because that is hard to come by sometimes, if I'm being
Right?
completely
Yeah.
honest.
Yes.
Sometimes it's like, this is just, the kids love it. And it's like, this
Yeah.
is a really good fit for you, but it's just not a good
Totally.
fit for me. And so
Right.
thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for
So
making it also interesting for me.
yeah, I purposely pick topics where I feel like adults will be interested in too. So
Mhm.
that's very important.
Nice. Love that. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to add that we haven't touched on yet?
No, I think just thank you so much for giving me the space to be here. It's really exciting and we're yeah, the community is growing and if anybody wants to we do a lot of audience engagement. Like if you want to send us your birthday, we'll do birthday shout outs. That's been very popular
Oh,
and
that's fun.
yeah, and we want audience engagement in that. If there's something special about your family that you would like to share, we're collecting information right now for an episode we're going to release at the end of June about how different families celebrate their birthdays around the
Oh,
world.
cute. That's
And again,
fun.
yeah, and it never, there's so many families where it's like mixed races, mixed traditions, where they don't celebrate a certain cultural tradition. But if you have a way where it's really special to your family that's been, passed down from generations, like we'd love to feature that because, that's what this is all about. So, yeah,
Definitely. Yeah, just like family culture within the
exactly.
like larger culture. Oh, that is fabulous. And I'm sure all of the kids and adults, quite honestly, that are like phoning in or voicemailing in, however you want to say that, are probably really excited to tell you because that is such a fun thing to talk about. So I'm excited. I'm excited to hear that episode when it comes out.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for talking to me today. It has been a delight, and I cannot wait to share you with my listeners. They all know I love kid podcasts, and this is another great one for your kids.
Thank you so much. You were so amazing to speak with. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you know someone or a family who could use Culture Kids in their life, will you share this episode with them? And if you want to help me celebrate 100 episodes, hop onto Instagram, chat about the Friendly Podcast Guide and why you love podcasts, and tag me in it so that I can get you entered to win that gift card. Talk to you soon. You want to say hi?
I am 6.
He just turned 6.